Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, Chapter 8, Part 2. Cassie Logan! Yes, Miss Cracker. That's the third time I've caught you daydreaming this morning. Just because you managed to come in first on examinations last week doesn't mean a thing this week. We're all in a new quarter and everyone's slate is clean. You'll make no A's by daydreaming. Do you understand that? Yes'm, I said, not bothering to add that she repeated herself so much that all a body had to do was listen to the first few minutes of her lesson to be free to daydream to their heart's content. I think you'd just better sit in the back where you're not so comfortable, she said. Then maybe you'll pay more attention. But Miss Crocker raised her hand, indicating that she did not want to hear another word, and banished me to the very last row in front of the window. I slid onto the cold seat after its former occupant had eagerly left it for my warm quarters by the stove. As soon as Miss Crocker turned away, I mumbled a few indignant phrases, then hugged my Christmas sweater to me. I tried to pay attention to Miss Crocker, but the cold creeping under the windowsill made it impossible. Unable to bear the draft, I decided to line the sill with paper from my notebook. I ripped out the paper, then turned to the window. As I did, a man passed under it and disappeared. The man was Caleb Wallace. I raised my hand. Miss Crocker, may I be excused, please, ma'am? I gotta, well, you know. As soon as I had escaped Miss Crocker, I dashed to the front of the building. Caleb Wallace was standing in the front of the seventh grade building talking to Miss Wellever and the two white men whom I couldn't make out from where I stood. When the men entered the building, I turned and sped to the rear and carefully climbed onto the woodpile stacked behind it. I peeked cautiously through a broken window into Mama's classroom. The men were just entering. Caleb Wallace first, followed by a man I didn't know, and Mr. Harlan Granger. Mama seemed startled to see the man, but when Mr. Granger said, "Been hearing about your teaching, Mary, so as members of the school board, we thought we'd come by and learn something," she merely nodded and went on with her lesson. Mr. Wellever left the room, returning shortly with 3 folding chairs for the visitors. He himself remained standing. Mama was in the middle of history, and I knew that was bad. I could tell Stacy knew it too. He sat tense near the back of the room, his lips very tight, his eyes on the man. But Mama did not flinch. She always started her history class the first thing in the morning when the students were the most alert, and I knew that the hour was not up yet. To make matters worse, her lesson for the day was slavery. She spoke on the cruelty of it, of the rich economic cycle it generated as slaves produced the raw products for the factories of the North and Europe, how the country profited and grew from the free labor of a people still not free. Before she had finished, Mr. Granger picked up a student's book, flipped it open to the pasted over the front cover, and pursed his lips. "These books belong to the county," he said, interrupting her. Mama glanced over at him, but did not reply. Mr. Granger turned the pages, stopped, and read something. "I don't see all them things you're teaching in here." "That's because they're not in there," Mama said. Well, if it ain't in here, then you got no right teaching it. This book's approved by the Board of Education, and you're expected to teach what's in it." "I can't do that." "And why not?" Mama, her back straight and her eyes fixed on the man, answered. "Because all that's in that book isn't true." Mr. Granger stood. He laid the book back on the student's desk and headed for the door. The other board members and Caleb Wallace followed. At the door, Mr. Granger stopped and pointed at Mama. "You must be some kind of smart, Mary, to know more than the fellow who wrote that book. Smarter than the school board, too, I reckon." Mama remained silent, and Mr. Wellover gave her no support. And in fact, Mr. Granger continued, putting his hat, you're so smart, I expect you just about forget about teaching altogether. Then that away, you'll have plenty of time to write your own book. With that, he turned his back on her, glanced at Mr. Wellover to make sure his meaning was clear, and left with the others behind him. We waited for Mama after school was out. Stacy had sent TJ and Clyde on, and the four of us, silent and patient, were waiting on the steps when Mama emerged. She smiled down at us, seemingly not surprised that we were there. I looked up at her, but I couldn't speak. I had never really thought much about Mama's teaching before. That was just part of her being Mama. But now that she could not teach, I felt resentful and angry, and I hated Mr. Granger. You all know? She asked. We nodded as she slowly descended the stairs. Stacy took one handle of her heavy black satchel, and I took the other. Christopher John and Little Man each took one of her hands, and we started across the line. Mama, said Christopher John when we reached the road, can't you ever teach no more? Mama did not answer immediately. When she did, her voice was muffled. Somewhere else, maybe, but not here, at least not for a while. But how come? Mama, demanded Little Man. How's come? Mama bit into her lower lip, and gazed at the road. Because, baby, she said finally, I taught things some folks just didn't want to hear. When we reached home, Mama, Papa, and Mr. Morrison were both in the kitchen, with Big Ma drinking coffee. As we entered, Papa searched our faces. His eyes settled on Mama. The pain was in her face. What's wrong? He asked. Mama sat down beside him. She pushed back a strand of her hair that had worked its way free of the chignon, but it fell back into her face again, and she left it there. I got fired. Big Ma put her cup down weakly, without a word. Papa reached out and touched Mama. She said Harlan Granger came to the school with Caleb Wallace and one of the school board members. Somebody had told them about those books I'd pasted over. But that was only an excuse. They're just getting at us anyway. They can because of shopping in Vicksburg. Her voice cracked. What do we do, David? We needed that job. Papa gently pushed the straight hair back over her ear. Oh, we'll get by. Plant more cotton, maybe. But we'll get by. There was quiet reassurance in his voice. Mama nodded and stood. Where you going, child? Big Ma asked. Outside. I just want to walk for a bit. Christopher John, Little Man, and I turned to follow her, but Papa called us back. Leave your mama be, he said. As we watched her slowly cross the backyard to the barren garden and head toward the south pasture, Mr. Morrison said, with you here, Mr. Logan, you got no need of me. Maybe there's work you had around here. Maybe I could get something, help you out. Papa stared across at Mr. Morrison. Oh, there's no call for you to do that, he said. I'm not paying you anything as it is. Mr. Morrison said softly, I got to be a nice house to live in, the best cooking a man could want. And for the first time in a long time, I got some family. That's right good pay, I'd say. Papa nodded. You're a good man, Mr. Morrison, and I thank you for the offer. But I'll be leaving in a few weeks, and I'd rather you was here. His eyes focused on Mama again, a tiny figure in the distance now. Papa, rasped Christopher John, moving close to him. Mama gonna be all right? Papa turned, putting his arm around Christopher John, drew him even nearer. Son, your mama, she's born to teaching like the sun is born to shine. And it's going to be hard on her not teaching anymore. It's going to be real hard. Because ever since she was a wee bitty girl down in the Delta, she wanted to be a teacher. And Grandpa wanted her to be one too, didn't he, Papa? Said Christopher John. Papa nodded. Your mama was his baby child, and every penny he'd get his hands on, he'd put it aside for her schooling. And that wasn't easy for him either, 'cause he was a tenant farmer, and he didn't see much cash money. But he'd promised your grandmama before she died to see that your mama got an education. And when your mama come high school age, he sent her up to Jackson to school, then on to teacher training. It was just it was just 'cause he died her last year schooling that she come on up here to teach instead of going back to the Delta. And y'all got married and she ain't going back down there no more, interjected little man. Papa smiled faintly at little man and stood up. That's right, son. She was so smart and pretty to let get away. He stooped and looked out the window again, then back at us. She's a strong, fine woman, your mama, and this thing won't keep her down. But it's hurt her bad, so I want y'all to be extra thoughtful for the next few days. And remember what I told you. You hear? Yes, sir, Papa, we answered. Papa left us then and went on to the back porch. There, he leaned against the porch pillar for several minutes, staring out toward the pasture. But after a while, he stepped into the yard and crossed the garden to join Mama. TJ, you sure? Stacy asked little Willie Wiggins at recess the next day. Little Willie nodded morsely and answered. Heard it myself. Clarence, too, was standing right upside him at the store when he told Mr. Caleb. Come talking about how Miss Logan failed him on purpose and then said she wasn't a good teacher and that she the one stopped everybody from coming up to their store. Said she even was destroying school property, talking about them books, you know. Who's gonna take 'em? I cried. Oh, hush, Casey, said Stacy. How come you just telling us this now, little Willie? Little Willie shrugged. Guess I got fooled by old TJ Clarence. Old TJ. Clarence and me, we told him we was going to tell as soon as we left that store, but TJ asked us not to do it. Said he was going right back and tell them it wasn't nothing but a joke, what he said. And he went back too, and I thought nothing was going to come of it. He hesitated, then confessed. Didn't say nothing about it before, 'cause me and Clarence wasn't supposed to be up there ourselves. But then, here come Mr. Granger yesterday and fires Miss Logan. I figure that's TJ's doing. He probably figured it too, I said. That's why he ain't in school today. Talking about he's sick, said Christopher John. If he ain't now, he gonna be, prophesied little man, his tiny fist balled for action, round here chilling on mama. After school, when Clyde turned up the forest trail leading to the Avery's house, we went with him. As we emerged from the forest into the Avery yard, the house appeared deserted. But then we spied TJ lazily swinging, straddle-legged atop an inner tube hanging from an old oak in the front yard. Stacy immediately charged toward him. And when TJ saw him coming, he tried to swing his long right leg over the tube to escape. He ain't make it. Stacy jumped on that inner tube, giving them both a jerky ride before they landed hard on Mrs. Avery's azalea bush. Man, what's the matter with you? TJ cried as he rolled from under Stacy to glance back at the flattened bush. My mama gonna kill me when she see that bush. Stacy jumped up and jerked at TJ's collar. Was you the one? Did you do it? TJ looked completely bewildered. Do what? What you talking about? Did you tell it? You tell them Wallace's about mama? Me? Asked TJ. Me? Why, man, you ought to know me better than that. He do know you, I said. How come you think we up here? Hey now, man, wait a minute, objected TJ. I don't know what somebody been telling y'all, but I ain't told them Wallace's nothing. You was down there, Stacy accused. The day Mama caught you cheating, you went down to them Wallace's. Well, that don't mean nothing, said TJ, jerking away from Stacy's grip and hopping to his feet. My daddy says I can go down there if I wanna. Don't mean I told them old folks nothing though. Heard you told them all sorts of things. Like mama didn't know nothing. And she wasn't even teaching and that she was supposed to. Didn't either, denied TJ. I ain't never said that. All I said was that it was her that. His voice trailed off as he realized he had said too much. And he began to laugh uneasily. Man, hey y'all. I don't know how come Miss Logan got fired, but I ain't said nothing to make nobody fire her. All I said was that she failed me again. A fella got a right to be mad about something like that, ain't he? Stacy's eyes narrowed upon TJ. Maybe, he said, but he ain't got no right to go running his mouth about things he ain't supposed to be told. TJ stepped backward and looked nervously over his shoulder to the south, where the fields lay fallow. The rutted wagon trail, which cut through the fields leading from the distant Granger mansion, revealed a thin woman stepping briskly toward us. TJ seemed to take heart from the figure and grew cocky again. Don't know who's been telling, but it ain't been me. A moment silent passed. Then Stacy, his eyes got cold and condemning, said quietly, "It was you all right, TJ. It was you." Then turning, he motioned us back toward the forest. "Ain't you gonna beat him up?" cried a disappointed little man. "What he got coming to him is worse than a beating," replied Stacy. "What could be worse than that?" asked Christopher John. "You'll see," said Stacy, and so will TJ. TJ's first day back at school after almost a week's absence was less than successful. Avoiding us in the morning, he arrived late, only to be shunned by the other students. At first, he pretended that the students' attitude didn't matter. But by afternoon, when school was out, he hurried after us, attempting to convince us that he was merely a victim of circumstances. Here, here y'all ain't gonna hold what little Willie said against me, are you? He asked. "You still saying what little Willie said ain't true?" questioned Stacy. "Why shoot ya?" he exclaimed. "When I catch up with that little rascal, I'm gonna beat him to a pulp round here telling everybody I got Miss Logan fired. Ain't nobody even speaking to me no more. Lil Willie probably told them Wallaces that himself, so he figures to get out of it by telling everybody it was..." "Ah, stop lying, TJ," I said testily. "Don't nobody believe you." Well, I should have known you would. Well, I should have known you wouldn't, Cassie. You never liked me no way. Well, well, anyway, that's the truth. I agreed. "But," said TJ, grinning again and turning toward little man and Christopher John, "my little buddy Christopher John believes me, don't you, fellow? And you still my pal, ain't you, little man?" An indignant little man looked up at TJ, but before he could speak, easygoing Christopher John said, "You told on Mama, TJ. Now she all unhappy because she can't teach school no more, and it's all your fault. And no, we don't like you no more." "Yeah," added little man in agreement. TJ stared down at Christopher John, not believing that he had said that. Then he laughed uneasily. "I don't know what's got into folks. Everyone's gone crazy." "Look," Stacy said, stopping. First you run off with the mouth to them Wallaces, and now you blaming Lil Willie for what you done. Why don't you just admit it was you?" "Hey man," TJ exclaimed, grinning his easy grin. But then finding that the grin and the smooth words was no longer worked, his face dropped. "Oh, all right. So maybe, what if I did say something about Miss Logan? I can't even remember saying nothing about it. But if both Little Willie and Clarence said I did, maybe I did. Anyways, I'm real sorry about your mama losing her job." And all of us, including Todd, stared distastefully at TJ and just walked away from him. "Hey, wait, man. Wait. I said I was sorry, didn't I?" he asked, following us. "Look, what's a fellow got to do anyway? Hey, y'all, look. This here is still old TJ. I ain't changed. Y'all can't turn on me, Jessica's. You the one turned, TJ. Stacy called over his shoulder. Now leave us alone. We don't want no more to do with you. TJ, for the first time comprehending that we were no longer his friend, stopped. Then, standing alone in the middle of the road, he screamed after us. Who needs y'all anyway? I've been tired of y'all always hanging around for a long while now. But I've been nice to tell you. I should have known better. What I look like having a bunch of little kids around all the time, and me here 14, near grown. We walked on, not stopping. Got me better friends than y'all. They give me things and treat me like I'm a man. And they white too. His voice faded into the wind as we left him, and we heard no more.